New Year's Eve had a way of making even the richest rooms feel crowded with things money could not buy. The lobby of the glass conservatory glowed like a jewel box, soft gold light, polished stone, winter coats brushed with melting snow. A string quartet played somewhere beyond a tall archway, their notes floating out like perfume. People laughed with the easy confidence of those who believed they belonged. Elena Hart stood at the host stand with her coat still on, the cold clinging to her hair. She had not planned to be here. She had not planned to be anywhere. But the night had chased her out of her penthouse the way silence sometimes did. Quiet at first, then loud enough to hurt. The host glanced down at a tablet and didn't even pretend to hesitate. "I'm sorry," the host said, voice smooth and practiced. "We're fully booked." Elena blinked once, as if the words had been spoken in the wrong language. She was used to doors opening before she reached them. She was used to being recognized, waved through, escorted, seated. She had built an entire life from being the person no one said no to, because saying no felt like standing in front of a moving train. She looked past the host's stand. She could see the dining room through a wall of glass and greenery, tables dressed in white, candles trembling, faces leaned close to faces. A hand touched a shoulder. Someone leaned in to whisper into someone's ear. A group clinked glasses as if they were sealing a promise. Elena's throat tightened in a way she didn't like. She tried to swallow it down. She tried the old tricks. Lift the chin, soften the eyes, make the voice calm enough to sound harmless. "There must be something," Elena said. "A corner, a bar seat." The host's smile stayed in place, but the eyes didn't move. Not tonight. It was such a simple refusal. That was the strange part. The refusal wasn't angry. It wasn't rude. It was just final. Like weather. Like gravity. Elena could feel her phone vibrating in her pocket. Messages, calls. A stream of people wanting pieces of her attention before midnight struck and the calendar changed. She did not pull it out. She did not want any proof that anyone was looking for her. Behind her, the front doors opened again. A blast of cold air swept in with a couple laughing too loudly, their cheeks red, their arms linked. They stepped around Elena as if she were a piece of furniture. Something in her chest flared, not rage, not exactly, but a sharp sting of embarrassment that made her want to disappear. She turned toward the exit, and that was when she saw him. At a corner table near the window sat a man in a dark sweater that had been mended at one elbow, a winter coat draped carefully over the chair back, as if it mattered. He was not dressed like the room. He did not have the polished, floating ease of the other guests. But he was there, and he was calm, and he was present in a way that made the noise around him fade. Across from him sat a little girl with neat braids and a sparkly headband shaped like stars. She was eating something slowly, as if trying to make it last. Her small hands held the fork with the seriousness of a grown person. The man's eyes lifted, met Elena's for one steady moment, and then he did something no one in that lobby expected. He stood up, not in a dramatic way, not with a big announcement, just a simple rise, like he had made a choice and was not afraid to be seen making it. He raised one hand, palm open, inviting, and waved Elena over. Elena stopped so quickly her heel skidded a little on the stone floor. The host followed her gaze, frowned slightly, as if trying to decide whether this was trouble. Elena felt suddenly too tall, too visible, too alone. The man did not wave again. He didn't beg with his eyes. He just waited, steady and patient, like he understood something about being turned away. The little girl looked up too, curious. She tilted her head and smiled, small, quick, bright, then went back to her plate, like it was normal for strangers to be offered kindness on New Year's Eve. Elena's mind raced in sharp, efficient circles, the way it did when she was closing deals or escaping traps. Who is he? Why is he doing this? Is this a setup? Does he know who I am? Is someone filming? Then another thought slid in, quieter but heavier. What if it isn't a trap? What if it's just a hand held out in the cold? Elena's fingers tightened around the strap of her handbag. She could walk out. She could go home. She could order room service and pretend she chose solitude, like she always did. But something about the man's stillness made leaving feel like a kind of defeat she wasn't willing to accept. She walked toward the table. As she approached, she noticed small details. The man's shoes were clean but worn. His hands looked like they had done real work, small scratches at the knuckles, a faint mark on one thumb like a burn. His hair was trimmed close, neat, but not styled. His face held a tiredness that didn't look like a bad night's sleep. It looked like responsibility. Up close, his eyes were warm, and they didn't flicker over her clothes or her watch or the subtle signs of wealth she had never learned to hide. "Hi," he said simply. His voice was low and steady, the kind that didn't fight for space in the room, but made space anyway. "Would you like to sit with us?" Elena glanced at the empty chair at their small table. It looked like a child's table compared to the grand ones deeper in the dining room. It was near the window, slightly tucked away, close enough to see the streetlights and the snow drifting down. Elena began, and then stopped because she realized she didn't know how to accept this. She knew how to negotiate. She knew how to give orders. She knew how to smile for cameras and speak in sentences crafted to land a certain way. She did not know how to say yes to something she hadn't earned. The little girl leaned forward, eyes bright. "You can have my extra roll," she offered, as if that settled it. Elena's mouth twitched, almost a laugh, almost a sob. The man pulled the chair out gently. "It's just us," he said. "No pressure, but it's cold out there." Elena looked back toward the host's stand. The host was watching, clearly uncomfortable, unsure what rule applied. Elena could already imagine tomorrow's whispers. Billionaire CEO denied table, rescued by stranger. People love stories like that, because it made the powerful look small and the world feel fair for a minute. Elena hated being a headline, but she hated walking out even more. She sat. The chair felt solid beneath her. The table was warm from the candle's glow. The air smelled like baked bread and winter spices. The man sat again, but he didn't act like she owed him anything. He didn't lean in like he expected gratitude. He just returned to his place, like this was a normal thing to do. "I'm Daniel," he said, "and this is Maya." Maya gave a little wave, then pointed at Elena's coat. "Your coat is pretty. It looks like it costs a lot." Daniel's eyes widened a fraction. "Maya." "What?" Maya asked innocently. "It does." Elena swallowed. "Thank you," she said, surprised by how honest her voice sounded. "I like your headband." Maya touched the sparkly stars. "It's for the new year. My dad says if you start the year shining, maybe the year will shine back." Daniel cleared his throat, slightly embarrassed. "She likes to collect rules. Little ones. Makes the world feel organized." Elena's gaze flicked to Daniel. "And does it?" Daniel paused. "Sometimes." A waiter approached, young, nervous, eyes darting between Elena's face and the rest of the room. He recognized her. She could see it in the way his posture tightened. "Good evening," the waiter said, too formal. "Can I get you anything?" Elena's instinct rose, her usual control, her usual authority. She could have asked for the best bottle, the rare dish, the chef's attention. She could have reclaimed her place in the hierarchy of the room with one sentence. Instead, she looked at Maya's small plate and the careful way she was eating. "What are you having?" Elena asked Maya. Maya beamed. "The pasta. It's really good. And the bread is warm." Daniel's shoulders loosened as if he had expected Elena to perform, and she had chosen not to. Elena looked at the waiter. "The same," she said. "And hot tea, please." The waiter nodded quickly and disappeared. For a moment, there was a quiet that could have been awkward, but Daniel did something subtle. He reached for his water glass and slid it slightly, making room on the table, as if the table had always been meant for three. Elena realized her hands were shaking just a little. She folded them together under the table. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly, meaning the invitation. Daniel looked at her as if the answer was simple. "I know." Elena's eyebrows lifted. Daniel nodded toward the host stand without looking. "I saw what happened, and I saw your face." Elena stiffened. Her face was something she managed carefully. Her face was a mask that had carried her through rooms where one wrong expression could cost millions. "You don't know me," she said. Daniel's voice stayed calm. "No, I don't. But I know what it looks like to stand somewhere and realize you don't belong there, even if you've done everything you were told you should do." Elena's throat tightened again. Maya swung her feet under the table. "Sometimes people think my dad doesn't belong in fancy places," she announced, as if reading a report. Daniel gave her a look, gentle warning. "Maya." "What?" she asked again. "It's true." Elena looked at Daniel's hands. She imagined them holding Maya's hand, crossing busy streets, carrying groceries, opening stubborn jars, fixing things that broke, because life always broke things. "How did you get table?" Elena asked before she could stop herself. Daniel's mouth curved slightly. "I didn't at first. I came early. 3 hours early." Elena stared. 3 hours? Daniel shrugged. "They said they could maybe seat us if someone canceled. So we waited. Maya did homework in the lobby. I drank bad coffee from a paper cup and tried not to look like I was begging." Maya nodded solemnly. "I got a gold star on my math." Elena's mind tried to fit this into her world and failed. In her world, waiting was weakness. In her world, time was money. In her world, if someone told her to come back later, she made later come to her. "You waited 3 hours," Elena repeated quietly. Daniel's eyes held hers. It was New Year's Eve. Maya wanted to see the city lights. She wanted to feel like we were part of something. Elena didn't answer because she didn't trust her voice. The food came. The pasta was simple, comforting. The bread was warm. The tea smelled like something from childhood, honey and citrus. Elena took a bite and realized she was hungrier than she had admitted to herself. Not just for food, for the normalness of it, for the quiet way the table held them without asking for performance. Maya talked the way children did when they felt safe, jumping from topic to topic, asking questions that were both random and strangely sharp. "Do you live in this building?" Maya asked Elena, pointing up at the tall apartments across the street. Elena hesitated. "Something like that." Maya narrowed her eyes playfully. "That means yes." Daniel laughed softly, a quick sound that surprised Elena. It wasn't loud. It wasn't practiced. It was real. Elena found herself watching Daniel when he laughed, trying to understand it. People laughed around her all the time, but it often sounded like currency, like payment for attention. Daniel's laugh sounded like relief. "What about you?" Elena asked, turning the question away from herself. "Do you live nearby?" Daniel nodded. "Not far. A few train stops." Maya added, "Our apartment is small, but it's cozy. And we have a plant that keeps dying, but my dad keeps trying again." Daniel sighed. "It's not the plant's fault. It's mine." Elena smiled despite herself. She couldn't remember the last time she had talked about plants with anyone who wasn't trying to sell her a landscape plan for a rooftop garden. Minutes passed. Then more. Outside, snow continued to fall, turning the city into something softer. Elena's phone buzzed again. She ignored it. Daniel noticed anyway. "Someone looking for you?" Elena's chest tightened. She could say yes. She could say investors, assistants, security. An entire machine of people who existed to keep her moving. Instead, she said, "Always." Daniel didn't press. He just nodded like he understood that always could be lonely. As midnight crept closer, the dining room grew louder. People turned their chairs toward the windows. Some stood to take pictures. The staff moved faster, carrying champagne flutes like fragile promises. Elena had been at countless New Year's celebrations. She had stood on rooftops with fireworks exploding over her head. She had smiled into cameras. She had kissed cheeks and shaken hands. She had made speeches about growth and possibility and the future. This was the first New Year's Eve in a long time that she hadn't been expected to be anything other than a person sitting at a table. Daniel checked his watch, then looked at Maya. "You still want to stay until midnight?" Maya's eyes shone. "Yes." Daniel looked at Elena, almost as if asking permission. Elena felt something strange in her chest, an unfamiliar urge to say yes, to be part of this small circle rather than return to her towering solitude. "I can stay," she said. Daniel's expression softened. "Okay." The countdown began around the room, voices rising, laughter swelling. Maya climbed onto her chair carefully, standing so she could see the windows better. 10, someone shouted. Maya joined in, her small voice bright. 9. Elena felt the room tilt into that strange collective moment when everyone pretended they were connected. 3. Daniel's hand hovered near Maya's waist, ready to steady her. 2. Elena looked at the window and saw their reflections layered over the city. 3 figures at a small table, one of them wearing a coat that cost more than some people's rent, one of them wearing a sweater with a mended elbow, one of them wearing glittering stars on her head. 1. The room erupted. Cheers, glasses clinking, people hugging and kissing and shouting wishes they wouldn't remember in the morning. Maya threw her arms around her dad's neck. Daniel hugged her back, eyes closed for a second like he was holding on to something sacred. Elena sat very still. Then Maya turned suddenly and hugged Elena too. Quick, impulsive, warm. Elena froze at first. She wasn't used to being touched without warning. She wasn't used to hugs that weren't staged or expected. But Maya's arms were small and sincere, and for a moment Elena let herself lean into it. "Happy New Year," Maya whispered. Elena's throat tightened so hard it hurt. "Happy New Year," she managed. Maya pulled back and smiled. "See, the year is already shining." Daniel watched Elena with a careful expression, as if trying to read whether this was too much. Elena lifted her chin slightly, signaling she was okay. Around them, the celebration swirled on, but at their table, the noise felt far away. Elena took a breath and realized she had made it through midnight without feeling like she was acting. That realization scared her more than any boardroom ever had, because if this felt real, then what had the rest of her life been? When the crowd began to settle, Daniel gathered their things. Maya put on her coat, still buzzing with excitement. "We should go," Daniel said softly. "It's late." Elena nodded, surprised by a sting of disappointment. She hadn't expected to want the moment to last. She reached for her wallet automatically. "Let me." Daniel's hand lifted, stopping her gently. Not harsh, not embarrassed, just clear. "No," he said. Elena blinked. "I can pay for." Daniel shook his head. "I invited you." Elena's pride flared out of habit. "It's not about." Daniel's voice stayed calm, but his eyes sharpened slightly. "Elena." She paused. She hadn't told him her name. He noticed her expression and gave a small shrug. "You're hard to miss," he said, not unkindly. "But this isn't about your money. This is about a table, a meal, a night. Let be that." Elena felt heat rise in her chest, shame, irritation, something deeper. She wanted to control the situation again. She wanted to turn gratitude into a transaction, because transactions were safer than feelings. Daniel's gaze held hers. "You don't owe me anything," he said. Not even an explanation. The boundary was clear, and somehow it felt like respect. Elena forced her hands to relax. "Thank you," she said quietly. Daniel nodded once. "You're welcome." They walked out together into the snow. The city had that after-midnight hush, like it was catching its breath. At the curb, Daniel called for a ride on his phone, an old model with a cracked corner. Maya hopped from foot to foot, trying to catch snowflakes on her tongue. Elena's car was waiting across the street, her driver standing near it, scanning the crowd. He saw her and straightened quickly, concern flashing across his face. Elena felt the pull of her life, security, schedules, the controlled world waiting for her like a cage lined with velvet. Daniel shifted, sensing the moment of goodbye. Maya waved enthusiastically. "Bye, Elena. Don't be lonely next year." Daniel's eyes widened. "Maya." "What?" Maya asked, unfazed. "That's the title of the night. Lonely. But now she's not." Elena's chest tightened. Children said things adults said behind manners. Daniel looked at Elena with a quiet apology in his eyes. Elena surprised herself by smiling. "Good night, Maya," she said. Then she looked at Daniel. "Good night." Daniel hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Take care of yourself." Elena nodded, as if that were something she knew how to do. She slid into her car. The door closed with a soft, expensive thud. As the car pulled away, Elena looked back through the window. Daniel stood with Maya tucked close, his arm around her shoulders, snow catching in his hair. He watched the street calmly, not like someone trying to be seen, but like someone making sure his daughter got home safe. Elena realized she didn't know anything about him, where he worked, what he had lost, what had shaped him into someone who would invite a stranger to share their table. And she realized something else, sharper and more unsettling. She wanted to know. The next morning, the city felt hungover. Streets were quieter, the air colder, the lights less magical. Elena woke in her penthouse to the sound of nothing. No footsteps in the hallway, no laughter, no small voice asking questions. Just the hum of heat and the distant murmur of traffic far below. Her phone was full of messages. Congratulations. Happy New Year. People asking for meetings as if the calendar had reset, and now everything could begin again. Elena stared at the screen and felt a strange emptiness. She sat up, wrapped in a robe that was soft enough to make people jealous, and tried to name what she was feeling. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was contrast. Last night had been small, imperfect, unexpected, and it had felt warmer than anything she could buy. Elena went to the kitchen, where her refrigerator held more food than she ever ate. She poured coffee and didn't taste it. Her mind kept returning to the moment at the table when Daniel had stopped her from paying. The firmness, the respect, the boundary. Let it be that, he had said. Elena realized she had spent years turning every human interaction into a deal, a favor, a leverage point. Even kindness had become something she managed like a brand. And last night, a man she didn't know had offered her something she couldn't control. A seat. A simple yes. Elena picked up her phone and opened her contacts. She found Jonah, her chief assistant, the person who always knew what she needed before she admitted it. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she stopped. Calling Jonah would pull the moment into her machine. It would turn Daniel into a file, Maya into a detail, the table into a story she could own. Elena set the phone down. She stood at the window and watched the city move. Then, with the same quiet decisiveness that had built her empire, she made a different kind of choice. She left her apartment without telling anyone why. She walked alone, through streets still dusted with snow. She kept her coat simple, her hair tucked into a hat, sunglasses low. She wanted to move through the world without being a headline. She found herself near the glass conservatory again, staring at it from across the street. In daylight, it looked less magical and more like what it was, a place built to make people feel special if they could afford it. Elena's stomach twisted. She didn't go inside. Instead, she walked further, letting her feet decide. She passed a small park where kids were dragging sleds. She passed a corner store with a faded sign. She passed a community center with flyers taped to the window. Tutoring, food pantry hours, winter coat drive. And then she saw it. A small bulletin board outside a school building, covered in notices. One flyer had bright colors and a hand-drawn star border. Family night, it read. Games, books, and warm cocoa. Elena stared at the flyer, and her heart did something unexpected. Maya's sparkly headband. My dad says if you start the year shining. Elena turned away quickly, as if the flyer could see her. She returned to her penthouse, colder than when she left. That night, Elena sat at her kitchen island and opened her laptop. She typed Daniel's name, Daniel Brooks, into a search bar, then stopped. She didn't want to dig into his life like that. She didn't want to invade. She didn't want to turn him into information. But she needed a way to find him that didn't feel like stealing. Elena thought about where they had been. She thought about the way Daniel had said a few train stops. She thought about Maya's talk of homework in the lobby, of math stars, of family night flyers. Elena had resources that could find anyone in minutes. That wasn't the question. The question was, could she find him without breaking the boundary he had placed between them? Elena sat still for a long time. Then she did something she almost never did. She waited. Days passed. The year moved forward the way it always did, dragging Elena back into her old rhythm. Meetings, calls, presentations, numbers, decisions. She sat at a long table of executives, her voice calm, her mind sharp. She signed papers with steady hands. She gave instructions. She corrected mistakes. People praised her focus. People called her unstoppable. And yet, beneath it all, Elena felt something shifting. She found herself noticing things she used to ignore. A janitor wiping down a handrail in the lobby of her building. The tiredness in his posture. The careful way he did his job as if it mattered. A young assistant on her team, chewing on a pen cap while waiting to speak, eyes anxious. Elena found herself asking, "Are you okay?" and meaning it, not as a polite script. Her staff looked startled at first, then grateful. Elena didn't understand herself anymore, and that both frightened and thrilled her. One evening, 2 weeks into the new year, Elena left work late. Snow fell again, quiet and heavy. She walked past a small bookstore she had never noticed before. The window display was simple. Children's books, bright covers, soft lights. On impulse, Elena went inside. The store smelled like paper and cinnamon. A bell chimed softly. A woman behind the counter looked up, surprised, then smiled. Elena wandered the shelves, fingers brushing spines. She stopped in the children's section without planning to. She found a book about stars, another about math puzzles, another about a plant that kept trying again, even when it wilted. Elena stood there, holding the books, feeling ridiculous. Why am I doing this? Because she could still see Maya's face when she hugged her. Because she could still hear Daniel's voice saying, "Let it be that." Because she had gone back to a world full of money and realized money did not keep you warm at midnight. Elena bought 3 books and left the store with the bag in her hand like a secret. She didn't know where to take them, so she did the only thing she could do without crossing the line. She returned to the glass conservatory, not to dine, not to demand, just to ask. The same host stand was there, the same polished stone, the same air of quiet luxury. A different host greeted her, an older man with tired eyes. "Good evening," he said. Elena kept her voice calm. 2 weeks ago, she began. On New Year's Eve, there was a man here with his daughter. They sat by the window. "I'm trying to return something." The host's eyes narrowed slightly, cautious. Elena set the bag gently on the counter. "These are for the little girl," she said. "If you see them again, could you give it to them?" The host hesitated. "I can't promise I'll see them again." Elena nodded. "I understand." The host looked at her face longer, as if searching for something. Then his expression softened just a fraction. "I remember them," he said quietly. "The girl with the stars. They were polite. He waited a long time." Elena's chest tightened. "Yes." The host picked up the bag carefully. "If they return," he said, "I'll pass it along." Elena exhaled, relieved in a way she didn't expect. "Thank you." She turned to leave, then paused. "Did they come often?" The host shook his head. "No, it was special." Of course it was, Elena thought. Special because it cost something they didn't have to spare. Elena walked back out into the cold, feeling both lighter and emptier. She had done something kind, but she still didn't know them. And kindness from a distance felt like throwing warmth through a closed window. The next day, Jonah appeared at Elena's office door with a tablet, looking nervous. "There's a message," he said. "Someone left it with reception. They said it was for you." Elena's heart kicked hard. Jonah handed her an envelope. It was plain. No logo. No fancy seal. Just her name written in careful letters. Elena stared at it like it might disappear if she blinked. She opened it slowly. Inside was a folded note and a drawing. The drawing showed 3 stick figures at a table. One had a star headband. One had a tall coat. One had a little heart above his head, not in a romantic way, but in the way children drew hearts to mean good. The note, in messy child handwriting, read, "Thank you for the books. I started the year shining, and you made it shinier. My dad says thank you too." He said I can't ask for your number, but I can say if you ever want cocoa. Family night is on Fridays at the center near Maple Street School. There was a second line, smaller. Don't be lonely. Elena's vision blurred. She held the note carefully, as if it were fragile. Jonah cleared his throat. Do you need anything? Elena shook her head quickly, swallowing hard. No, she said, voice thick. Thank you. Jonah hesitated, then quietly closed the door behind him. Elena sat alone in her office, surrounded by glass walls and city views, and pressed the drawing flat on her desk. Family night. Fridays. A community center near Maple Street School. Daniel had found a way to offer her a door without pushing her through it. He had also placed a boundary right there in Maya's note. He said I can't ask for your number. Elena's chest ached with the simple honesty of that. He didn't want her money. He didn't want her power. He didn't want her to turn their connection into something owned. He was offering her something else. A chance to show up. That Friday, Elena stood outside a community center with a paper bag of cocoa mix in her hand, feeling more nervous than she had ever felt walking into a room of investors. The building was modest, brick walls, bright posters in the windows. Inside, she could hear laughter, children's voices, the clatter of folding chairs. Elena paused at the door. She could turn around. She could go back to her penthouse, where no one asked anything of her except performance. But she could still see Maya's drawing in her mind. 3 stick figures. A small table. A heart. Elena opened the door. Warm air rushed over her face, carrying the smell of cocoa, popcorn, and something like hope. The room inside was full, not with luxury, but with life. Kids ran between tables. Parents stood in small clusters talking. Volunteers handed out paper cups. Someone had put up a banner that said welcome in bright letters. Elena kept her head down, trying not to be noticed. Then she heard a small voice shout, Elena. Maya came running, her braids bouncing. She was wearing the star headband again, as if it had become part of her identity. Elena's heart lurched. Hi, she said, and her voice sounded softer than usual. Maya grabbed her hand without hesitation. You came. Dad. She came. Daniel turned from a table where he was helping set out books. When he saw Elena, he froze for half a second, like someone who had imagined something and wasn't sure it was real. Then he walked toward her, calm but cautious. Hi, he said. His eyes searched her face. You didn't have to. Elena held up the cocoa bag awkwardly. I brought cocoa. I wasn't sure what to bring. Daniel's mouth curved slightly. Cocoa is good. Maya tugged Elena toward a table of board games. Come sit. We're playing a game where you have to guess the animal, but you can only ask yes or no questions. Elena glanced at Daniel, silently asking if she was allowed to join. Daniel nodded. If you want to. Elena realized she was waiting for permission because she didn't trust herself not to take over. That realization stung. I want to, she said. They sat. Elena played the guessing game badly at first. She asked questions too logically, too strategically. Maya laughed at her seriousness. Relax, Maya said, grinning. It's not a meeting. Elena startled. Do you know what meetings are like? Maya rolled her eyes. My dad has meetings too. He just calls them, talking to people who don't listen. Daniel coughed, trying to hide a laugh. Maya. What? Maya asked, delighted. It's true. Elena laughed then, an actual laugh, surprised out of her. It felt like a crack in a wall she had built. After a while, Maya ran off to join other kids. Elena and Daniel found themselves standing near the cocoa table, watching the room. Daniel poured cocoa into 3 paper cups. He handed one to Elena. Thank you, Elena said quietly. Daniel nodded. Thanks for coming. Elena took a sip. It was too hot. She almost winced, then forced herself to slow down and let it cool. Daniel watched her. You're not used to waiting, he said gently. Elena looked at him, caught. No, she admitted. Daniel's gaze stayed soft. You can learn. The words landed deeper than Elena expected. She stared at the room, kids laughing, parents smiling, volunteers moving quietly. There was no status here. No one cared what Elena owned. No one knew the size of her bank accounts or the awards in her office lobby. For the first time in a long time, Elena felt like she could breathe. She didn't speak about her company. Daniel didn't ask. She didn't offer money. Daniel didn't hint. They talked about small things first. Maya's school, her favorite books, the plant that kept dying, the best way to make cocoa taste richer without extra sugar. Elena found herself asking Daniel questions she had never asked anyone. "How do you do it?" she asked, nodding toward the room. "Show up like this every week." Daniel shrugged, but there was weight behind it. "Because Maya needs it," he said, "and because I need it too, even if I don't want to admit it." Elena's chest tightened. Daniel's eyes flicked to her cup. "You come to places like this often?" Elena shook her head. "No." Daniel didn't ask why. He just nodded as if he understood that no could be a whole story. That night, Elena left the community center with her coat smelling faintly like cocoa, and she realized something startling. She was looking forward to next Friday. Weeks passed, and the Fridays became a quiet thread in Elena's life, weaving through the loud fabric of everything else. At work, she remained Elena Hart, the CEO, the decision-maker, the person whose name made rooms straighten up. But on Fridays, she became just Elena, the woman who played board games badly, who learned Maya's favorite stories, who helped wipe down tables after events without being asked. At first, she did everything carefully, like stepping through a room full of glass. She watched herself constantly. Don't take over. Don't fix. Don't throw money at problems. Don't make it about you. Daniel was polite but steady. If Elena drifted too close to control, he gently pulled the line back. One evening, Elena arrived with a stack of brand-new children's books, thinking she was being helpful. The volunteers had mentioned their shelf was bare. Daniel's expression tightened slightly when he saw the glossy covers. "Elena," he said quietly, stepping aside with her. Elena's stomach dropped. "What?" Daniel's voice stayed calm, but firm. "You can't do that." Elena blinked. "They need books." Daniel nodded. "They do, but you can't just drop them off like you're saving us." Elena's pride flared. "I'm not saving anyone. I'm just—" Daniel's eyes held hers. "You don't mean it that way," he said. "I believe that, but it still lands that way. This place has its own dignity. People here work hard. They're not waiting for a rich stranger to bless them." Elena's cheeks heated. "I didn't think." "That's the problem," Daniel said softly. "You didn't think about what it feels like on this side." Elena swallowed hard. The words weren't cruel, but they cut because they were true. "So what do I do?" Elena asked, voice low. Daniel looked at the books, then back at her. "If you want to help," he said, "ask. Don't assume. And don't do it in a way that makes you the center." Elena stared at him, the old reflex rising, defend, argue, prove. Then she remembered the host's stand, the refusal, the humiliation, the relief of being invited without being owned. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, forcing the word out. "I'm sorry." Daniel's shoulders loosened. "Thank you." Elena took the books back to her car. She felt foolish. She felt angry at herself. She felt something else too, respect for Daniel's boundary, and a strange gratitude that he cared enough to protect the space from her. She returned inside empty-handed and sat down to play games with Maya like nothing had happened. It was harder than signing $1 million deal, but it felt cleaner. As the months moved forward, Elena and Daniel began to talk more deeply, not in dramatic confessions, but in the quiet way people reveal themselves when trust grows like a small plant, slow, stubborn, real. Elena learned that Daniel worked 2 jobs. One was at a maintenance company that serviced office buildings. The other was evenings at a warehouse loading trucks. He didn't say it like a tragedy. He said it like a fact. Elena learned that Maya's mother had left when Maya was very young. Daniel did not speak about it with bitterness. He spoke about it carefully, like touching an old bruise. "Elena," he said one night as they walked Maya home from the center, "you don't have to come every week." Elena looked at him. Snow crunched under their shoes. Streetlights painted soft halos in the cold air. I know, Elena said. Daniel's breath fogged. Then why do you? Elena paused, searching for a truth that didn't sound dramatic. Because when I'm here, she said slowly, I don't feel like I'm performing. Daniel watched her quietly. And when you're not here? Elena's throat tightened. I feel like I'm disappearing. Daniel didn't answer right away. Then he nodded once, as if he understood more than he wanted to. As spring came, the snow melted. The city grew louder again, but Elena's Fridays remained steady. And something else began to happen, subtle but inevitable. People at the center started to recognize her, not as a famous figure, but as the woman who showed up, who listened, who didn't act like she owned the room. A volunteer named Rosa began to greet her with a warm smile. A teenage boy asked Elena for help with a resume, not knowing her job title, only sensing she was sharp. Elena helped him, and it felt better than any applause she had ever received. Daniel watched all of it with quiet caution. He never let himself lean too far into the connection, as if afraid that if he did, the ground might disappear. Elena felt that caution too. She didn't want to break what they were building by moving too fast, by forcing it into a shape. Still, there was an ache that grew between them, not loud, not romantic in a dramatic way, but present like a low flame. Sometimes, Elena would catch Daniel watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. His gaze would soften, then quickly turn away. Sometimes, Daniel would say something simple like, "You did good tonight," and Elena's chest would tighten as if those words mattered more than anything. Sometimes, Maya would look between them with the smug satisfaction of a child who believed she understood adults better than they understood themselves. One evening, as summer approached, the center hosted a small fundraiser. Nothing fancy, just a few tables, a raffle, handmade decorations. Elena arrived early to help set up. Daniel was there, taping paper lanterns to the wall, while Maya arranged cupcakes on a tray. Elena reached up to steady a lantern, and her hand brushed Daniel's. For a second, both of them froze. It was nothing, just skin touching skin. But the silence that followed made it feel like everything. Daniel pulled his hand back first, not rude, just careful. Elena felt a strange sting, not because she wanted more, but because she realized how much she had begun to want comfort without conditions. Later, when the fundraiser ended and people began cleaning, Elena found herself alone with Daniel near the back door. The air outside was warm, the city humming. Daniel leaned against the wall, looking tired. "You work too much," Elena said quietly. Daniel let out a soft breath. "So do you." Elena shook her head. "I don't have to," she admitted. "I just don't know what else to do sometimes." Daniel's eyes met hers. "What do you want to do?" Elena opened her mouth and realized she didn't know how to answer without turning it into a goal. What do you want? She had always wanted success because success promised safety. She had wanted control because control promised she wouldn't be hurt. But standing here, looking at Daniel's tired eyes, Elena felt a different want, a softer one. "I want to be," she stopped, searching. "I want to be someone who can sit at a table and not feel like I need to prove anything." Daniel's expression shifted, something tender flickering there. "You're already learning," he said. Elena's throat tightened. "Because of you." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, as if the words were dangerous. "Careful," he said softly. Elena blinked. "Careful." Daniel's gaze held hers. "That's a big thing to put on someone," he said. I'm not here to fix you, Elena." Elena's pride flared at the word fix, because it touched something raw. "I'm not asking you to." Daniel's voice remained calm. "Good," he said. "Because I can't. And because you don't need that." Elena swallowed, realizing he was protecting both of them, protecting Maya, protecting the fragile thing growing between them. The boundary was there again, clear and fair. Elena nodded. "Okay," she whispered. They stood in silence for a moment, and then Maya burst through the door like a storm. "Dad," she announced, "Rosa says you have to take the trash out. And Elena, you left your bag on table." The moment broke, but the ache remained. That summer, Elena made a mistake. It didn't happen in one dramatic scene. It happened the way most mistakes happen for Elena. Quietly, confidently. with the belief that she was doing the right thing. Daniel's second job at the warehouse began to take more hours. The company that ran the warehouse had cut staff. Daniel's pay stayed the same, but his workload doubled. He came to family night still, but he looked more exhausted. He drank coffee like it was medicine. He rubbed his neck like it hurt. Elena watched him and felt something rise inside her, an old instinct she knew well. Fix it. She didn't want to see him struggle. She didn't want to watch Maya's dad get worn down by a system that didn't care. Elena told herself she wasn't doing it for herself. She told herself it was kindness. But beneath that kindness was something sharper. Control. One evening, Daniel mentioned offhand that Maya's school was planning a trip, but he wasn't sure he could afford it. Elena's chest tightened. "How much is it?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "It's fine. We'll figure it out." Elena insisted. Daniel refused gently. Elena smiled like she let it go. But she didn't. The next day, Elena called Jonah and asked him to find the name of Maya's school. Jonah hesitated. "Is this personal?" Elena's voice went cold with authority. "Just do it." Jonah did. Elena contacted the school's administration under the name of her foundation, because of course she had a foundation. She offered to sponsor the trip for students in need. She made it sound generous, anonymous, dignified. The school was thrilled. Within a week, a letter went home to parents announcing that a donor had covered the cost of the trip for several families. Maya came home waving the letter, eyes shining. "Dad," she shouted. "We can go. We can go." Daniel stared at the letter, confusion tightening his face. "What donor?" he asked. Maya shrugged. "It doesn't say. It just says someone wants kids to have opportunities." Daniel's gaze lifted slowly to Elena, who had stopped by to drop off a book Maya had asked for. Elena felt her stomach drop. Daniel's eyes were not angry yet. They were something worse. They were disappointed. "Elena," Daniel said quietly. Elena tried to smile. "Isn't it great?" she said, too bright. "Maya can go." Daniel's voice stayed low, but firm. "Did you do this?" Elena's heart hammered. She could lie. She could pretend. She could protect her image. But Daniel's eyes were a boundary all on their own. "Yes," Elena admitted. Maya looked between them, confused. "You did it." Elena's chest squeezed. "I just wanted you to not have to worry," she said quickly. "It's a trip. She deserves to go." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at Maya, then back at Elena. "Can you give us a moment?" Daniel asked Maya gently. Maya frowned. "Why?" "Please," Daniel said, and his tone made it clear it wasn't a suggestion. Maya's eyes flicked to Elena, then back to Daniel. She nodded slowly and went to her room, dragging her feet. The apartment was small, cozy, exactly as Maya had described. There was a plant in the corner that looked like it was fighting for its life. There were drawings on the fridge. There was a thinness to the walls that made every sound feel close. Daniel held the letter in his hand, like it weighed more than paper. "You went behind my back," he said softly. Elena's throat tightened. "I didn't mean." "You didn't ask," Daniel said. Elena's pride rose. "I was trying to help." Daniel's eyes flashed. "That's what you call it," he said. "But it wasn't help, Elena. It was you deciding you know best." Elena felt heat rise in her face. "Do you want Maya to miss out because you're proud?" Daniel's expression hardened. "Don't do that," he said. "Don't turn this into me being unreasonable." Elena's voice sharpened. "Then what is it?" Daniel took a breath, and when he spoke, his words were painfully clean. "It's dignity," he said. "It's respect. It's you looking at my life and thinking you can improve it without my consent." Elena's chest tightened. "I didn't improve your life," she snapped. "It's a school trip." Daniel's voice stayed calm, but his eyes were bright with something controlled. "It's not the money," he said. "It's the message that I can't provide, that I need you to rescue us." Elena's throat closed. "That's not what I meant." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know you didn't mean it, but you did it anyway." Elena swallowed hard. I hate seeing you exhausted. I hate watching you struggle." Daniel's gaze softened for a second. Then sit with it, he said, like the rest of us do. Sit with the discomfort and let it be real. Elena's eyes burned. So you want me to do nothing? Daniel shook his head. No, he said. I want you to do something different. Ask me. Trust me. Treat me like an equal, not a project. Elena's pride screamed inside her. She had never been told to sit with discomfort. She had always solved discomfort by fixing the world until it stopped making her feel powerless. Her voice trembled. I thought we were friends. Daniel's eyes held hers, and his voice dropped. We are, he said. That's why this hurts. Elena's breath hitched. Daniel's shoulders sank slightly, the anger fading into fatigue. I can't have this around Maya, he said. I can't have her thinking people only get good things when someone rich decides they deserve it. Elena's chest tightened. So what happens now? Daniel looked away for a moment, gathering himself. Now, he said quietly, we take a step back. Elena's stomach dropped. Daniel. Daniel's gaze returned, steady and sad. I need space, he said. And I need you to understand that you don't get to buy your way into people's lives. Elena's eyes burned. She wanted to argue. She wanted to say she didn't buy anything. She wanted to say she had only offered kindness. But she saw the truth in his face, and it silenced her. Elena nodded stiffly. Fine, she whispered. Daniel's voice softened. Elena. Elena shook her head, swallowing the lump in her throat. No, she said, voice cracking. You're right. I crossed a line. Daniel watched her carefully. I'm not saying you're a bad person, he said. I'm saying you have habits that hurt people. The words landed like a heavy door closing. Elena stood up, suddenly desperate to escape the small apartment, the thin walls, the sense of being seen too clearly. She grabbed her bag. Her hand shook. At the door she paused. Tell Maya. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Daniel nodded. I will. Elena stepped into the hallway and felt the air hit her like cold water. She rode the elevator down alone. When she got into her car, her driver asked, Everything okay, ma'am? Elena stared out the window at the city and realized she didn't know how to answer. No, she whispered, so softly the driver didn't hear. The next Friday, Elena didn't go to family night. She told herself it was respectful. She told herself Daniel needed space. But the truth was, she couldn't bear walking into that room and seeing the empty space where Daniel and Maya used to be with her. She spent that Friday in her penthouse, staring at the same city view that used to make her feel powerful. Now it made her feel trapped. Elena tried to distract herself with work. She took calls. She reviewed documents. She signed papers. But her mind kept replaying Daniel's words. You have habits that hurt people. Elena had built her habits in fire. She had learned control because control meant survival in rooms where softness got you eaten alive. But Daniel was right. Her control had become a weapon, even when wrapped in kindness. Days turned into weeks. Summer faded into fall. Elena heard nothing from Daniel. Maya didn't send drawings. Family night continued without her, and Elena felt the absence like a bruise. One evening, Elena found herself standing in her kitchen, holding a mug of tea, staring at her reflection in the dark window. She looked successful. She looked composed. She looked like a woman who had everything, and she had never felt more alone. Elena did something she had avoided for years. She called her sister. Her sister, Lena, answered on the second ring, voice sleepy. Elena, is everything okay? Elena swallowed hard. I don't know, she admitted. There was a pause. Then Lena's voice softened. Tell me. Elena sat down at her kitchen island and spoke, haltingly at first. She told Lena about the restaurant, about Daniel and Maya, about family night, about the books, about Coco, about the mistake. Lena listened without interrupting, which was rare. When Elena finished, her throat ached from holding back too much. Lena exhaled. So, she said gently, you met people who didn't want your money, and it scared you. Elena flinched. It wasn't that. Lena's tone stayed kind but firm. It was, she said, Because money has been your language. And when someone doesn't speak it, you don't know how to communicate. Elena's eyes burned. I tried. I know, Lena said softly. But you tried with your old tools. Elena stared at her mug. How do I change? She asked, the question sounding strange on her tongue. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, start with apology. A real one. Not a gift. Not a donation. Not a dramatic speech. Just apology. Elena swallowed. He asked for space. Yes, Lena said. So respect that. But you can still send a message that doesn't demand anything. Something that says, I understand. I'm working on it. I'm sorry. And then you leave it alone. Elena's heart hammered. How do I send a message without his number? Lena's voice held a little warmth. Find a way that doesn't feel like hunting him, she said. You're smart. You'll figure it out. After the call ended, Elena sat in the quiet and realized she had been waiting for permission to change. No one was going to give it to her. She had to choose it. The next day, Elena went back to the community center, not on a Friday, but on a quiet weekday afternoon. The building was nearly empty. A few people moved inside, cleaning, organizing. Rosa was at the front desk. When she saw Elena, her expression shifted, surprise, then caution. Elena, Rosa said slowly. It's been a while. Elena nodded. Yes. Rosa studied her. Is everything okay? Elena swallowed hard. No, she admitted. I made a mistake. I hurt someone. I'm trying to fix it. Not with money. Just fix it. Rosa's expression softened slightly. Daniel, she asked. Elena nodded. Rosa sighed. He's been stressed, she said. Work got worse. Maya's been asking about you. Elena's chest tightened painfully. Is he okay? Rosa hesitated. He's proud, she said. And he's tired. Elena nodded slowly. Can you give him a note? She asked. Rosa's eyes narrowed slightly. A note. Elena reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. Plain, handwritten. It's just words, Elena said. No gifts. No offers. No money. Just apology. Rosa studied Elena's face. Then she nodded. I can give it to him, she said. But you need to be prepared he may not respond. Elena's throat tightened. I know, she whispered. That's the point. Rosa took the envelope. Okay, she said gently. I'll give it to him. Elena left the building feeling both lighter and more terrified, because now there was nothing to hide behind. Just her words. Inside the envelope, Elena had written, Daniel, I'm sorry. You were right. I crossed a boundary because I was uncomfortable watching you struggle, and I tried to solve it the only way I knew, by controlling it. That wasn't respect. That wasn't equal. I understand if you need distance. I won't push. I just needed you to know I see what I did, and I'm working to change it. Elena, no dramatic lines. No excuses. No promise to fix everything. Just truth. Days passed again. Elena didn't go back to the center. She didn't ask Rosa for updates. She didn't send more notes. She forced herself to practice what Daniel had told her. Sit with it. She sat with the discomfort like it was a heavy stone in her lap. She learned how sharp silence could be when you didn't fill it with action. She began making small changes. She started leaving her phone in another room for an hour each night, letting herself feel the quiet rather than fight it. She began eating dinner at her kitchen table instead of standing over her counter with documents open. She started taking walks without security, quiet streets, simple routes, learning how to exist without an audience. At work, she practiced asking instead of commanding. What do you think? She asked her team, and then waited for real answers. When a young manager made a mistake, Elena didn't crush him with a cold stare. She asked, what happened? And listened. These were small things, but for Elena, they were painful. Like learning to use muscles she had never needed before. One Friday evening in late fall, Elena sat alone in her penthouse, staring at the city lights, trying not to think about family night. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Elena's breath caught. She stared at the screen. Her hands trembled slightly as she answered. Hello. There was a pause. Then Daniel's voice. Elena, he said. Elena's chest tightened, so hard she could barely breathe. Daniel. His voice was steady, but there was something careful in it. Rosa gave me your note, he said. Elena swallowed. Okay. Daniel exhaled softly. Thank you, he said, for not doing it the old way. Elena's eyes burned. I meant it, she whispered. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Elena could hear faint background noise. Maybe the street. Maybe Maya talking somewhere. You said you're working on changing, Daniel said. Yes, Elena said quickly. I am. I'm trying. Daniel's voice softened slightly. Maya wants to talk to you, he said. Elena's heart lurched. Is she? She's fine, Daniel said. She misses you. Elena's throat closed. I miss her too, she admitted, voice cracking. There was a rustle. Then Maya's voice burst through the phone. Elena. Hi. Are you lonely right now? Elena laughed through tears. Not as lonely as I was, she whispered. Hi, Maya. Maya talked fast, like she had been storing words. She told Elena about school, about a book she had read, about the plant dying again. Then she lowered her voice, as if sharing a secret. Dad looks tired, she whispered. He tries to hide it. Elena closed her eyes. I know, she said softly. Maya's voice brightened again. Are you coming to family night? Elena froze, heart pounding. She didn't want to push. She didn't want to step into their space like she owned it. She looked for Daniel's voice, and when it came back, it was careful. I'm not inviting you back like nothing happened, Daniel said quietly. But if you want to come this Friday, you can. Just come as you. No surprises. Elena's chest tightened painfully. I can do that, she whispered. Daniel's voice held a faint warmth. Okay, he said. Then we'll see you. When the call ended, Elena sat very still. Her penthouse was the same. The city lights were the same. But something inside her felt different. A door had opened again, not because she pushed, not because she bought it, but because she had changed enough to be trusted with it. That Friday, Elena arrived at the community center with empty hands. No gifts, no donations, no plans, just herself. When she walked in, Maya ran to her like she had never left. Elena knelt and hugged her, careful, steady. Daniel stood behind Maya, watching Elena with quiet attention, as if looking for the old habits. Elena stood up and met his eyes. Hi, she said softly. Daniel nodded. Hi. There was no dramatic forgiveness, no big emotional speech, just a quiet return. Over the next months, Elena's reconnection with Daniel and Maya grew slowly, like trust rebuilt one brick at a time. Elena learned to ask, would it help if? And accept no, without turning it into a fight. She learned to offer time instead of money. When Daniel's schedule got worse, Elena didn't call his bosses. She didn't find a way to solve it. She offered to pick Maya up from school once a week so Daniel could sleep for an hour before his warehouse shift. Daniel hesitated, pride flaring in his eyes. Elena waited. Finally, Daniel nodded. Okay, he said quietly. Once a week. Elena didn't celebrate. She didn't act like she had won. She just showed up. The first time she picked Maya up, Elena stood outside the school gate, feeling completely out of place among parents in worn coats and tired faces. She kept her sunglasses off. She held a simple tote bag, nothing expensive. Maya ran out, grinning. Elena. Some parents glanced at Elena, curious. Elena smiled politely, then looked away, resisting the urge to manage how she was seen. Maya chattered the whole way home, telling Elena about a classmate, about a teacher, about a story she wanted to write. Elena listened, really listened, and realized how long it had been since she had let someone else's small world matter without turning it into a lesson. At Daniel's apartment, Elena helped Maya with homework, while Daniel slept on the couch for an hour, exhaustion pulling him under like water. Elena watched him sleep, the tension in his face easing slightly, and felt a fierce tenderness that scared her. She didn't try to fix him. She just let him rest. Slowly, Daniel's guardedness softened, not because Elena begged for it, but because she proved, over and over, that she could respect boundaries. One evening, Daniel and Elena sat at the small kitchen table while Maya colored in the living room. The plant in the corner drooped again. Elena stared at it. "It's still trying," she murmured. Daniel followed her gaze and smiled faintly. "It's stubborn," he said. Elena looked at Daniel. "So are you." Daniel's smile faded into something serious. "So are you," he said quietly. Elena swallowed. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" Daniel nodded. "Sure." Elena's heart hammered. "Why did you wave me over that night?" she asked. "At the restaurant. You didn't know me. You didn't know me anything." Daniel was quiet for a moment, eyes distant as if returning to that lobby. "I saw you," he said finally. "Not the name people know. Just a person who looked like she had been holding herself up for too long." Elena's throat tightened. Daniel's voice softened. "And I thought," he admitted, "if I can give my kid a good night, maybe I can give someone else a good minute too." Elena stared at him, something aching in her chest. "You did more than that," she whispered. Daniel's gaze held hers. "Then don't waste it," he said. Those words became a quiet anchor for Elena. Don't waste it. She began to reshape her life around that idea. She started leaving work earlier once a week. She started building a life with space in it, not just accomplishments. Her team adjusted. Some people complained. Elena didn't panic. She realized that if her entire empire collapsed because she went to family night and picked up a kid from school, then the empire wasn't worth keeping. Time moved forward again. The next New Year's Eve approached, and with it came invitations, galas, rooftops, penthouse parties, glittering events designed to prove you were important enough to be seen. Elena received them all and felt nothing. Then, one evening in late December, Daniel called her. "Elena," he said, voice calm. "Maya has a question." Maya's voice burst in. "Are we going to the fancy restaurant again?" Elena's chest tightened, remembering the cold lobby, the refusal, the wave. Daniel spoke carefully. "She's been talking about it since last year," he said. "But I'm not sure it's worth doing again." Elena stared out her window at the city lights, feeling the echo of that night. "We don't have to," she said softly. Maya's voice turned dramatic. "But I want to start the year shining." Daniel sighed. "There it is." Elena smiled. "We can do something else," she offered. "Something that shines without that." Daniel was quiet. "Like what?" Elena paused, thinking about what she had learned. Not status, not performance, not proving. Presence. "What if," Elena said slowly, "we make our own table?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Elena continued, voice quiet but certain. "We could cook, or we could bring food to the center. They always need volunteers on holidays. We could do midnight there. With cocoa." Maya gasped. "Midnight cocoa." Daniel chuckled softly. "That actually sounds nice." Elena's chest warmed. "Then let's do that," she said. On New Year's Eve, Elena didn't wear a designer gown. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, hair pulled back. She arrived at the community center with Daniel and Maya, carrying trays of food prepared in Daniel's small kitchen. Simple dishes, warm and real. The center had opened its doors for families who didn't have anywhere else to go. People gathered, laughing, sharing, playing games. Volunteers moved through the room with gentle energy. Elena stood behind a table pouring cocoa into paper cups, Maya beside her sprinkling marshmallows like they were confetti. Daniel moved through the room helping set up chairs, greeting people, making sure everyone felt seen. Elena watched him and felt something settle deep inside her. This was what shining could look like. Not a spotlight, a shared warmth. As midnight approached, the center grew louder. People counted down with children perched on hips, teenagers leaning against walls, elders smiling quietly. Elena stood between Daniel and Maya, shoulder to shoulder, feeling the heat of bodies and laughter and life around her. Maya grabbed Elena's hand with one hand and Daniel's with the other, linking them like a bridge. The countdown rose. 10. Maya shouted loudest. 9. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from the strange relief of belonging. 3. Daniel squeezed Maya's hand gently, steadying her. 2. Elena squeezed back, steadying herself. 1. The room erupted. People hugged. People cheered. Someone turned up a small speaker, and music spilled out, imperfect but joyful. Maya threw her arms around both Elena and Daniel at the same time, laughing. Elena laughed too, and the sound felt like it belonged in her body now, not stolen. Daniel's gaze met Elena's over Maya's head, and in his eyes there was no need to explain anything. They had made it here. Not by forcing, not by buying, not by controlling, by showing up, again and again, until the door stayed open. Later, when the noise softened and people began to drift home, Elena stepped outside for a moment. The air was cold, crisp. Snow fell lightly, catching in her hair. Daniel joined her, pulling his coat tighter. Maya ran ahead, chasing snowflakes like she could catch time. Elena looked at the street, remembering the glass conservatory lobby from a year ago, the way she had stood with her pride and her loneliness wrapped around her like armor. She turned to Daniel, voice quiet. "Thank you," she said. Daniel's brows lifted slightly. "For what?" Elena exhaled slowly. "For waving," she said. "For seeing me. And for not letting me turn it into something ugly." Daniel watched her for a long moment, then nodded once. "You did the hard part," he said. "You changed." Elena swallowed. "I'm still changing," she admitted. Daniel's mouth curved slightly. "Good," he said. "So am I." They stood in companionable silence, watching Maya spin in the falling snow. Elena realized she didn't feel the need to be anywhere else. She didn't feel the itch to check her phone. She didn't feel the hunger for applause. She felt present. Maya ran back, breathless, cheeks pink. "Guess what?" she announced. "What?" Daniel asked, smiling. Maya looked at Elena with sparkly seriousness. "You're not lonely anymore," she declared. Elena's throat tightened. She glanced at Daniel, then back at Maya. "I'm not," Elena said softly. Maya nodded like that settled the universe. "Good," she said, then tucked her hand into Daniel's pocket, because her gloves were missing, and reached for Elena's hand with her other one. Elena took it. They walked down the quiet street together, their footsteps steady, their breath visible in the cold air. The new year opening in front of them like a door that didn't require a reservation, only a willingness to step through it and stay.